Are Vitality actually low-key the biggest frauds of 2022?
Vitality won't win a single tournament.
ZywOo is a choker.
If any semblance of pressure gets into ZywOo's head, he crumbles a bit.
If Apex cannot get ZywOo to perform, then you have to find a leader who can. It's about trophies. You're going to be 30 one day. You're going to look back. Maybe I did go missing in those stadium games. So what are you going to do about it now? What are you going to do about it now, brother?
In Counter-Strike, there have been a bunch of teams that could be considered dominant throughout the history of the game. Teams that just couldn't stop winning, players that couldn't be stopped, strategies that couldn't get solved. A number of these teams have come and gone, many of whom still live rent-free in our heads today. So when you think of the most dominant teams in Counter-Strike, what teams come to mind? Most everyone would probably think of Astralis from 2018 and 2019 when they just literally tore everyone apart and even the pros thought they were cheating somehow. Old heads will most likely think of Fnatic in 2015 and early 2016 when you can ask just about any person their least favorite team and there's a pretty good chance that they'll say they hate Fnatic. Or possibly even Ninjas in Pajamas because of their famous stint in the early days of CSGO that nobody could ever forget. The difference between these teams is that everyone loved an IP. Look how happy Get Right is after a win. How can you get mad at that? Oh, I guess that's how. Anyway, lucky for us, there's a definitive way to determine a team's dominance at any point in the history of the game. Here's a graph of the longest win streaks in CSGO and CS2 alongside their maps played. As you can see, Astralis are on here twice, because of course they are. There's 2023 FaZe, who I labeled as 2022 by accident, who dominated at the very start of CS2 alongside G2. There's 2016 Luminosity and Navi in 2021, and if we go a little higher, we can see that with 23 matches won in a row, Team Liquid in 2019 won 42 maps and only lost 6 to achieve their incredible win streak. But if we go just a bit higher, our winner is unveiled as the newest and most recent addition to the list, Team Vitality, with a whopping 30 matches won in a row and a record of 66 and 13. During the span of dominance, Vitality have won 7 top-tier events, over $1.5 million, on top of a $1 million Grand Slam and a major championship, making them objectively, without a doubt, the most dominant team to ever touch the game. Jesus Christ. I totally forgot about that. Okay, well that one's a story for another time. In this video, we're going to look at the most recent addition to this list, a team that is currently still #1 in the world, how they got here, and maybe along the way I'll figure out exactly where my childhood joy ran off to, if it still exists at all. So before we can talk about where they're at now, we need to go back. Back to 2018, the year of Astralis' rise, Cloud9's major, Panorama UI, and Danger Zone for all 6 people that were fans of that game mode. Out of all the influential happenings that occurred that year, our eyes are going to be set on a couple of professional teams, namely Team Envious and G2. These two French teams have had their differences over the years. With nearly all of these players having been on the same team at one point, the French scene in Counter-Strike is a tightly knit shit show of drama and hatred for one another. So much so that the community has actually made charts showcasing the relationships between all the top players after all the shuffles and separate projects made behind each other's backs, resulting in numerous betrayals and hurt feelings. Here is also an incredible graph made by this Reddit user showcasing all of the shuffle. There is obviously a lot going on here. I did say it was a shit show after all, but I'm not going to go one by one and explain all the intricacies of the entire French scene. Instead, I'm going to focus on one of the most important players of this video, Apex. Apex, as you can see from this chart, has literally been everywhere and managed to find success on every team that he's ever been on. Think of any French CS team and he was there. He was on 3D Max and Very Games and Source, LDLC where he's taken down NiP in their prime, Epsilon for literally 12 days, Titan when Kukli was VAC banned, Envious when he won his very first major, and finally G2 where he'd take home a couple trophies in their first year with the team in 2017 before results began to stagnate, never seeming to get better, which resulted in his eventual benching alongside NBK when G2 decided to side with Shox for one last French shuffle. Speedrunning Apex's career though doesn't do him justice. This man was regarded as one of the best entry fraggers of all time. He's won a major, been placed in the top 20 twice, won events, and managed to stay relevant during every single stage of his entire career. It's just that he wasn't the same player he used to be before the benching, and his ultra-aggressive entry fragging style that found him a lot of success in the early days of CSGO was just not cutting it in the modern age of Counter-Strike. So as Apex's averages went down year after year, resting at a mediocre 1.01 by the end of 2017, many people in his position would outright quit after hitting a brick wall. But not Apex. Apex had a talk with his former teammate NBK and they formed a plan. Well, sort of. Initially, NBK planned on joining an international team going off on his own, but time just so happened to be on their side. Long-standing team Envious decided that they needed a roster overhaul after being stuck in the trenches of Tier 2 with their best performances at a Tier 1 event in over a year, being a 5th to 6th loss at EPL Season 5. And my god, what were the NV owners thinking? Most notably of the ex-Envious lineup was RPK, who was having an above-average year in 2017, alongside 2-time major winner and major MVP Happy. These two stuck together, having played some smaller tournaments and qualifiers while standing in for Tempo Tampa Storm, which led Happy to play in a qualifier with an unknown 17-year-old French kid named ZywOo. Little at the time was known about Matthew. You can find some of his games playing semi-professionally dating back to 2016, but he's only started to receive attention once he joined Y6 in 2017 and placed 3rd at Epsilon 14 with 48 teams in attendance. Then at Gamers Assembly 2017, Y6 managed to finish 2nd out of 64 teams attending, and ZywOo had a beyond exceptional performance, going 159 and 47 during the entire event. But ZywOo was an unknown quantity in a very developmental stage in his career. He could op, rifle, have massive impact on pistol rounds and ecos, but without a proper team built specifically around him and his one-man army, nobody could tell how he would perform. Fast forward to 2018, and the excitement only grew around ZywOo, who was showcasing everything he's got in FPL against some of the best players in the world. He would sub in for Imperial during a DreamHack Open qualifier and absolutely tear apart 19th best team in the world, Godsent, which was enough to prove to most people that this kid was absolutely the real deal. He played so well that Imperial ended up benching the player that he subbed in for. Everyone now was just waiting for the day that he gets a chance to play against tier 1 opposition and gets signed to a professional team. It was only a matter of time. And time was the only thing that mattered, because with NBK and Apex getting benched, Envious disbanding, and ZywOo's rise to prominence, the stars aligned and French organization Team Vitality was keen on making an explosive entrance to CSGO. Vitality were looking to make a statement by picking up 4 of the French scene's most legendary players to mold ZywOo into an unstoppable force. Everyone in the community knew exactly where they were going, even without mentioning it, and a few hours later, Vitality announced the signing of NBK, RPK, Apex, Happy, and ZywOo. But just because you have all these established players doesn't mean tournaments were going to be a walk in the park though. Because they created a brand new roster and signed to a new organization, this meant they had to go through most qualifiers the old-fashioned way and grind through open pools of mixed teams and tier 2 competition, desperately trying to prove themselves at a big event. Vitality would receive some special treatment though, getting directly invited to the DreamHack Open Atlanta European qualifier, and they did not squander this opportunity, especially ZywOo, who shined with a 1.55 rating throughout the 3 best of 3s they played to take the spot in the main event. At DreamHack Atlanta, they'd lose to Steel's Ghost Gaming, then would win 2 best of 3s without dropping a map, destroy World 16 Complexity 2-1 with a ZywOo masterclass, and then Apex absolutely popped off in the grand finals against Luminosity, putting up a 1.8 rating to snag Vitality's first real tournament win. The competition here wasn't the cream of the crop, as Complexity was the highest ranked team in attendance, but this event proved more than anything that Vitality were at least able to compete at a tier 1 level, and more importantly that ZywOo is not deterred by stage pressure, performing far and away better than any of the players at the event. After their Atlanta victory, Vitality would replace head coach Faculty with Exotez because he was afraid of flying. Yeah, that'll do it.
Faculty was scared of planes.
But you can't do that.
Yeah, it's tough to do that job.
But now it's all sunshine and rainbows for Vitality, as they would lose a B-tier event Loot Bet Cup 3 and fail to deliver in their revenge match against G2, who have already given up on Shox' experiment with Existence and Smiths after about 6 months. But Vitality were looking for some immediate improvements. So by late December, they decided that Apex was probably right about his reservations with Happy not leading, so the team benched Happy and signed UK player Alex to add some much needed firepower to the French roster. Alex historically had led French teams as an IGL his entire career, but Vitality was giving him the chance to hone in on his aggressive rifling style. Don't let the UK flag fool you, Alex is as French as they come, and you'll see why soon enough. With NBK leading the team in the addition of Alex, Vitality would begin the year ranked 21st in the world, and after qualifying for the 2019 Katowice Major, actually made it through to the New Legend stage with only a single best of 1 loss to Tai Lu. The gang almost made it to the playoffs after a hot 2-1 start, but faltered in the best of 3s, resulting in them dropping out of the major, albeit with a direct invitation to the next major in Berlin, which is a massive step for a team that just formed about 4 months prior. Speaking of 4 months though, NBK was the sole leader of this team for about that long, and immediately after the arrival of Alex, the team decides that NBK's T-side calling is not working. So, Alex takes over as a shot caller for T-sides, and NBK would focus on CT-side calling. Like clockwork, these two would begin butting heads over who is the real captain of the team, since both of them want their calls to take precedence over the other. French power struggle mode has been engaged. It's only a matter of time now before everything falls apart. Despite the turmoil, their performance drastically improved. In May, attending CS Summit 4, which had some pretty strong competition in NRG, Liquid, and ENCE, whom average form ZywOo bested in every best of 3 played to claim his first career MVP and his well-earned Duck trophy. This Vitality roster climbed the leaderboard to number 11, but after the CS Summit win, they'd propelled themselves into becoming the 4th best team in the world 8 months after appearing from thin air. Vitality would march their way through the Dallas group stage just to be eliminated by Furia, and 6 days and a 9-hour flight later, they'd arrive in London for the ECS finals as heavy favorites. Here they'd be the 2nd seed in the playoffs after going 2-1 in the groups, and it seems that their preparations were no joke, as they'd rematch Furia in the finals and walked them 16-9 and 16-4 to hoist their first Tier 1 trophy in London, with ZywOo claiming his 2nd MVP of many. To put into perspective how insane insanely quick this team rose to prominence. 10 days after winning a top-tier tournament worth $225,000, Vitality had to compete in the ESEA Premier Playoffs to get a chance to play in the MDL European Finals, which would earn them a spot in ESL Pro League. The fourth best team in the world is still competing in a semi-professional division immediately after winning an S-tier tournament. Unfortunately though, because this team is French, from the moment things started getting good, it was inevitable that something had to ruin the fun, and in this case, Alex was upset with the team's atmosphere because NBK didn't want to give up the IGL role, and he felt that NBK was not a good captain. So before Cologne, he called Coach Exitez and decided he wanted to bench himself. Alex was convinced to stay on the team until the Berlin Major and put up a really good result at Cologne, losing to the Team Liquid that were going on a mythical run that has never been seen or heard of since. ZywOo at Cologne claimed his third MVP despite the loss. Then at IEM Chicago, Vitality would lose once again to Team Liquid. Now having 2 eventless months to prepare for Berlin, Vitality's future was looking uncertain, with a roster change being guaranteed in the future. As of July 8th, 2019, Vitality are named the second best team in the world thanks to an 18-year-old rookie in his first year competing, but going into Star Ladder Berlin, everything falls apart just as suspected. Day 1, they'd lose to world number 39 Simon 16-8, and NBK says it was because, quote, we played like pussies. Which, depending on the type of person you are, I guess, is not really something you want to hear from your leader. They would rebound and make it to the quarterfinals for ZywOo's first ever major playoff appearance, but unfortunately, despite his best efforts, they were eliminated by Dark Horse of Vanguard 2-1. NBK had a particularly bad performance, putting up a 0.65 rating against Jamin Crew, which may have been the final straw for Alex, who gave the team an ultimatum. It's him or me. Coach Exitez ultimately decided to bench NBK so that Alex could take over as the sole leader of the team, and very conveniently on the same day, G2 began weighing their options after a disappointing major run. Shortly before DreamHack Malmo, Vitality confirmed that Shox would be replacing NBK on a quote like-for-like basis, reuniting him with Apex and RPK for the first time since 2017. Going into Malmo, the team would immediately find themselves in the grand finals against Fnatic, who would defeat Vitality in a very close 2-1 series, and ZywOo would snag his 4th MVP of the year at yet another second place finish. The bar was already set quite high for Shox, and a couple of mediocre performances later, Vitality showed up at Epicenter to end the year with a bang. Starting off the group stage winners match against Navi and Simple, the reigning best player in the world. Simple, who is at risk of losing his #1 spot due to his team's lackluster performance, has gone on record to say that ZywOo is closer to his level than any other pro, and that it's going to be pretty hard to catch up to him when he's playing at his best. This was Simple's opportunity to prove that he was still at the very top of that coveted list and that ZywOo still had a lot to learn. But that's not what happened at all. Vitality let them have one map and then curb stomped Navi 16-3 on both maps to close the series. Last time ZywOo faced Simple at DreamHack Malmo, it was a similar story. Simple wanted to humble ZywOo and give him his welcome to the big leagues moment, but it never came. So as Vitality made their way through the playoffs, they end the year with their 3rd trophy lift, and ZywOo takes home his 5th MVP after putting up a 1.53 rating the entire event, which put him in a prime position to overtake Simple and earn his title as the #1 best player in the world in his first full year competing professionally. Early on, some may have had their doubts about this kid, but by the end of the year, everyone managed to agree on one thing. It was without a question that ZywOo was in fact the chosen one.
He's had enough.
He's going to keep going through it. He doesn't really care, does he?
There's 4 here again. He wants the ball. Get him out of here.
He's the closer.
A nickname coined by the fact that he was literally born on the same day as Counter-Strike's release. It was as meant to be as Spam and Rice, or Milk and Coffee, or the parking spot outside my house and getting taken the moment I fucking leave. The year is now 2020, and as many of you may know, this is the year that everything went to shit for not just Vitality, but the entire planet, as state-mandated lockdowns were just all over the place. Quarantining for weeks was becoming a normal thing for more than just the socially inept gamer who never went outside anyway. I remember competing in ESEA main this year, and my teammates would play scrims and practice while being in a Zoom call for school. What a truly miserable time for existence. Counter-Strike also had its own lockdowns and mandates as in-person LAN tournaments disappeared and games were forced to be held online, making events much more scarce with lower stakes, and online events meant winning 6 figures from the comfort of your own home and Logitech's C920 reaction cams. 2020 though did begin with an offline tournament in Blast Premier where Navi and Simple ended up getting their revenge against ZywOo, but RPK did this against them, which is a pretty cool reconciliation, I guess.
Kryptonite again.
In March, a week after a disappointing loss in Katowice, Vitality announced that Alex will be leaving the team due to, quote, the very demanding lifestyle of a high-level professional CSGO player. I want to make a joke about the phrasing of this exit so bad, but he actually had to stop playing due to health problems, which is really just depressing, and I wish him well. A day later, Vitality announced the addition of young up-and-comer Masuda, who only had 30 HLTV matches before joining Vitality. This left questions as to who would be carrying the leader's baton now that Alex is gone. Obviously, Masuda can't lead the team, RPK is not interested, ZywOo is the wonder kid, and Shox can only count to 26, which leaves only veteran Apex as the main target. And wouldn't you know it, just a day later, Apex himself officially announced that he would become Vitality's new captain. Vitality wouldn't get comfortable with their new system until June, where they jumped 8 places on the HLTV leaderboard to become second in the world after a second place finish at Blast Spring, ZywOo as the MVP again. They'd only dropped 2 maps on their way to the CS Summit 6 finals, where they'd lose a close best of 5, once again ZywOo getting an MVP anyway. Then they'd go to ESL Cologne 2020, going 4-0 in the playoffs to get absolutely demolished 3-0 against Heroic in the finals, and even after getting owned this badly, ZywOo still managed to get the MVP because this is just what he does. 3 events in a row, all second place finishes, and ZywOo was the MVP of all of them. Their good performances wouldn't continue at EPL Season 12 after they'd bomb out in groups, but at least RPK got another sick Deagle clip against FaZe.
Biggest scalp done, but RPK's knocking off scalps and handing out headshots. Good grief, I didn't expect that.
Vitality would go right back into the finals against Heroic at DreamHack Open Fallout, and this time make it much closer, but when your team's scorelines look like this, there's only so much one man can do. Which is why ZywOo was awarded his 4th MVP of the year, even though he hadn't even won a single event yet. Another small but significant change that was made this year was the addition of Scream's younger brother, Nivera, as a 6th man whom Vitality would play with on Dust 2 instead of Misuda and Inferno over Shock. Nivera was a huge assist and firepower all throughout IEM Beijing, and whenever his time came, he always stepped up, which was especially helpful in the finals against Na'Vi, where after going down 0-2 in the best of 5, Vitality clawed their way back, winning all 3 of the remaining maps to finally win their first big tournament of the year. If you thought ZywOo hard carrying was bad, I suggest you look away from this scoreboard. ZywOo though was ZywOo all throughout the event, grabbing his 5th MVP of the year, and on the first round of the last map against Na'Vi, pulling off what would be probably the sickest pistol clutch you will ever see.
Looking for the cleanest finish, he's been turned on. ZywOo, no health really, but he's still hitting shots. He's already got 3 and 4 and 5 and 6! Oh my god, ZywOo! My lord, I am close to climax.
There is a good reason for that timeout. I don't think too many players would be in their chairs after that one. That is insane, and that is why ZywOo... Oh my.
Yo, they pop off!
And finally, in the second to last event of the year at Blast Fall Finals, Vitality, after a not so close finals against Astralis, claimed their second and last tournament win of the year. RPK and Apex, of course, enjoying the win from their bedrooms with the C920 reaction cams. ZywOo would naturally claim his 6th MVP at this event too, which solidified him being named the best player in the world in back-to-back years. But after this point, things begin to fall apart once more. To end the year, Vitality would lose to Big at IEM Masters, even though the scoreline looked like this, and then bomb out of groups. Then a 3rd place finish at the Blast Global Finals behind Simple and Na'Vi would be the last time Vitality had a good tournament placing for about 5 months. Everything just started going wrong.
I remember in 2021, right, you were always battling against Na'Vi. Like,
And losing, it's not batting, it's always
I don't
losing.
lo-
to
okay.
Na'Vi.
Apex in February took a break from competition that lasted a total of 9 days, and in March the team decided that it was time to end the 6th-man experiment after Valve made the decision to issue penalties to teams who use substitute players in the RMR circuit, which would be the system used to qualify for the next major. In April, after a disappointing group stage exit at ESL Pro League Season 11, the team made the decision that the Blast Spring Showdown will be RPK's last event in a Vitality jersey. As nice as it would have been to take home a win for RPK's last big tournament as a professional player, ZywOo apparently didn't give a shit because he had an absolute stinker and they got eliminated in the first round by South American mixed team 9Z, who were ranked 88th in the world at the time. This is so sad. ZywOo really said, "I don't give a fuck."
I don't want to play with you anymore.
RPK's successor, however, would be Vitality's biggest mistake of the year. Instead of using Nivera, who is 1, already signed to the team, 2, has months and months of practice with the team already, and 3, has a good amount of experience against Tier 1 competition by now, Vitality decided to take a gamble and sign 22-year-old Kyojin, who only had 19 games played on HLTV and practically 0 experience against even Tier 2 competition. It was almost like Vitality owners looked at his YouTube channel and saw his sick pug highlights and were like, yup, this is it. This is the next ZywOo. Poor Apex got his work cut out for him, having to lead, teach, and mentor 3 kids and the guy who kicked him from his last team. So Vitality moved on with yet another new up-and-comer and bombed out at 2 more events and even losing a best of 3 to DBL Pony 2-0, who had NBK as a stand-in, which meant that they weren't even the best team in France for a few days. And after another loss to eventual winners Na'Vi at IEM Cologne, Vitality dropped out of the tournament 9th to 12th place. And by the time EPL rolls around, Vitality seemed up to the challenge, winning 4 out of the 5 matches and steamrolled the playoffs to make it to the finals against #1 team in the world, Na'Vi. This match was extremely close with back and forths all the way through, but on the last map, Vitality pulled together 14 rounds before eventually falling to Simple on the last round of the game, giving up the title as well as allowing Na'Vi to win their Grand Slam in the process. IEM Fall in October would be the first LAN event played since February of 2020, and Vitality were amped up and ready after their close battle with the best team in the world, Then they'd get absolutely shit on by ninjas in pajamas with Device and claim 3rd place. Since this was the first offline tournament since early 2020, that means that HLTV finally had the chance to give ZywOo his medals, so they just took the photo with all of them at once, which was pretty iconic. But this tournament didn't matter much because a month later in November was going to be the PGL Stockholm Major, the first real major tournament since Berlin in 2019. Now was Vitality's time to prove that all that practice meant something, that they were ready and willing to take on the entire world, and they went 0-2 in the group stage. They managed to claw their way back, but unfortunately because all of the games were close, this meant that they had to play the #1 seed of the Legend stage, and that meant that they had to draw Na'Vi. Vitality put up a decent fight, but Na'Vi made it quick, sweeping them 2-0, and then went on to win the whole thing, Simple's first ever major win and MVP. ZywOo spoke before this saying that he doesn't view Simple as a rival whatsoever, and he considers every opponent to be his rival, and he just focuses on his game, which is a really mature and measured outlook on competition. It's really too bad he's this chill about it too, because at the Blast Fall Finals, Vitality would face Na'Vi in the upper bracket finals, get shit on, then brush through the lower brackets so they could play Na'Vi again in the grand finals just to get dumpstered again. What an amazing sequence of events just to get 2nd place behind Simple for the 100th time. Fortunately for Vitality at IEM Winter Stockholm, Na'Vi weren't present, which left the door wide open for them to sneak in and steal a trophy away, which is exactly what Vitality did after taking down a deviceless NiP roster in the finals 3-0, finally taking home a trophy in 2021 and ZywOo getting his first MVP of the year. Very generous of Na'Vi to skip an entire event just so Vitality could win one, though it just so happens that the last event of the year, Na'Vi did show up and in peak form, then easily took down Vitality for what would be the 7th time this year. Literally undefeated against Vitality in 2021. ZywOo would take home the #2 this year because even though Vitality only won a single event alongside his only MVP, he was still statistically unbelievable and deserved his flowers. The rest of Vitality, though, were not so lucky. After this loss, the team felt like it was time for some big changes. They were tired of only being confined to the French scene and getting stuck with the same rotating players over and over again, or having to take risks on up-and-coming players who are probably not going to be on the level of ZywOo anyway. So when Coach Exotez and Shox left in December, Vitality dropped a bombshell on the community and signed Dupree, Magisk, and Zonic from the former greatest team of all time, Astralis. These three are proven winners, probably more so than anybody else in the history of the game. Dupree and Zonic are 4-time major champions, whereas Magisk was with them for 3. Their experience alone justifies this move and couldn't be more opposite of a pickup like Kyojin, who unfortunately would be tossed aside to make room for the legends. The amount of things ZywOo and Misuda could learn from these 3 is invaluable, and Apex was going to start getting some lessons on leading from a guy who is widely considered to be the greatest coach of all time. There's just one issue. None of them are native English speakers. I mean, they can all speak English fine, I guess, but it's still an adjustment that has to be made. The entirety of Astralis spoke Danish and the entirety of Vitality spoke French. There is obviously a mismatch here. The question primarily is how big of a problem can this actually be? Turns out, not as big of an issue as the mismatch in playstyle. At the major, they would go 3-0 in the challenger stage, look great, and even beating Astralis, who had no idea what the fuck they were doing either. What the fuck is Zipex doing here? I guess he's only the clutch minister when he's the one in the clutch. But in the Legends stage, they immediately start 0-2, and after a win against Liquid, Dupree opened up a little bit about the atmosphere of the team in an HLTV interview. He said that since him and Magisk joined, they're trying to lighten the load for ZywOo, and they no longer want to be reliant on one guy every single game. A good idea in theory, but a lot more difficult in practice, considering that these were the stats of the team once they got eliminated from the major. They played well enough to make it to the grand finals of Blast Spring 2020, but faced defeat at the hands of Simple as usual, and preceding yet another disappointing exit at IEM Cologne, they decided it was time for another change. Vitality couldn't crack the top 4 at any point of the year after the roster change. They knew that they had stagnated and they had reached their peak. If they wanted to win a tournament against any of the top 3, they were going to have to adapt. So in August of 2022, it was announced that Misuda would be leaving Vitality, and in his place, the team would go fully international with the addition of Spinks. Spinks in 2022 had become one of the hottest talents in the scene, averaging a 1.17 on LAN with ENCE this year, which is actually within the top 10 highest rated players in Tier 1 by this point. With this huge upgrade in firepower, the team would have a lackluster showing at Blast Fall groups, but EPL Season 16 was a completely different story. Vitality would top their group going 5-0, even taking down Na'Vi in their grudge match. Then they'd topple every team on their way to the grand finals against Liquid, where they'd shock the world and take the title 3-2 in an extremely close best-of-5 series. This victory was the glimmer of hope that Vitality needed to prove that there is potential here. Vitality would catapult themselves up to #1 in the world, but ended the year with a string of mediocre results, including a 12th to 14th finish at the major that dropped them back down to number 11. ZywOo was once again named the second best player in the world of 2022 because of his unbelievable consistency despite losing over and over again, while Spinks was ranked at 18th in the world, making this the first time time ever someone on Vitality other than ZywOo made it into the top 20. The Woo finally getting some help could only mean good things for this team. In 2023, things didn't start out very hot as they'd lose in the quarters of IEM Katowice and EPL Season 17 having to use Jax as a substitute due to Dupree going on paternity leave. But things would start turning around after Dupree's return when they finished 3rd at the RMR, which automatically qualified them for the Legend stage at the Blast Paris Major, a major that held far more significance for the French of Vitality. Dupree also maintained his record of being the only player in CSGO history to attend every single major. I'm sure the Danes were satisfied to simply make it to the major, but not Apex and ZywOo. They wanted to win this thing. And what better way to prepare for the major than to make it to the finals of IEM Rio and win the whole damn thing? Naturally, ZywOo was the MVP, but Spinks was right up there with him, sporting a 1.24 rating throughout the entire event, which is actually the 3rd highest rating of all the players attending. Vitality finally had a consistent boost in firepower that was desperately needed since the creation of this team, and it couldn't have come at a better time with the Paris major right around the corner. What made Paris even more special is that it was going to be the last major ever played on this version of Counter-Strike, as CSGO would transform into CS2 in September of 2023, a change that people are still mad about today for a good reason. Hey, remember when Valve said they weren't releasing 128-tick servers because it would impact players' performance and completely ruin the game for some people, and then went ahead and released Counter-Strike 2, which did exactly what they said it would, but without the 128-tick servers that everyone wanted? Yeah, that sucked. The only computers that could run Counter-Strike these days are the ones like the Acer Predator Orion 7000, the official tournament PC of IEM. A few months ago, Intel and Acer flew me out to IEM Cologne 2025, and while there, I got the chance to play on the Predator Orion 7000, which is actually what all the pros use on stage. They use them at all the IEM events, including Chengdu, which happened recently, which I would have gone to in person if it weren't for the fact that I got COVID. The Predator Orion 7000 is a beast. It really does provide next level gaming performance and ultra smooth gameplay even for CS2 on all high settings, which is almost impossible today. With this computer, I was owning dudes in Germany so hard that they were literally trying to kick me from the server. I thought NA was bad though. With up to 24 cores inside the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, you can stream, watch YouTube videos like this one on the background of your second monitor, and game all at the same time with no lag at all. Packed with an RTX 5090 and 128 gigs of DDR5 RAM, this beast is built to handle anything you can throw at it. It could handle Cyberpunk flawlessly. It would smash the Crysis 3 test if anyone still uses that game as a benchmark. It might even make you a good driver in Forza. Not me though, I am hopeless. Add in lightning fast Wi-Fi 7 and up to 6 terabytes of PCIe SSD storage, and you've got enough space for literally anything. So if you want to play on the same beastly machines as your favorite professional players, or if you just want unshakable performance and the ability to finally play CS2 the way it was meant to be played, make the upgrade. The Predator Orion 7000 awaits you. Literally, it's literally waiting for you. It is actually actively waiting for you. Thank you to Intel and Acer for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into things. Where was I? Oh, right. As the major began, Vitality started off extremely hot, going flawless in the Legend stage, beating world number 4 G2 and world number 9 ENCE to make the playoffs. After this, the stars aligned, the sun shined down on them, and they all woke up without a headache for once. As for Vitality, their first 2 games would be the most difficult matches they'd play for the entire rest of the tournament. The quarterfinals was against Into the Breach, ranked 28th in the world at the time, and Vitality won 2-0, barely breaking a sweat. Their semifinals match was against world number 19 Apex, who Vitality beat 2-0, and in the oh-so-important finals, they would be matched up against Gamer Legion, who were going on some Boston 2018 Cloud9 miracle run. Gamer Legion proved themselves to be a mighty opponent throughout this tournament, but were only ranked at 22nd in the world at the time, which meant they still had a long way to go before they could make it to the top. This would actually be the easiest match in the entire tournament for Vitality, winning 16-6 on Gamer Legion's own map pick before closing it out 16-13 to take home their first major championship. It really did feel like this was meant to be for Vitality. They didn't drop a single map the entire tournament. Not a single team they faced in the playoffs was ranked higher than 19th. ZywOo, who need I remind you was born on the same day Counter-Strike released, won his first major MVP in the last major to ever be played in CSGO, within their home country in front of childhood friends and close family members, and more importantly, the Golden Hornets.
Team Vitality!
Dupree also takes home the record for most majors won by a single player with 5, and Magisk also finally winning his 4th to catch up with the other Astralis guys. Spinks was here too. Preceding Counter-Strike 2's release in September, not everything was sunshine and rainbows for Vitality. They'd get 2nd place at a single tournament before a bombshell was dropped on the community that Dupree had been replaced by Flames, who Vitality didn't even need to pay for because his contract had ended with OG. They got this motherfucker for free. This move obviously shocked the scene, especially because Dupree went on record to admit that he wasn't even done competing and had no plans to retire. fire, literally quoted saying, "It's not like I'm done winning just because I won my 5th major." Well, Dupree, I hate to break it to you, but it seems like you are done winning, pal. The move isn't clearly an improvement yet, it's just unfortunate that in the case of Dupree, winning a major isn't enough to keep your spot on a team these days. Watch your back, ZywOo. You never know when Apex might just start opping and discover a secret talent dropping 30 bombs every game and the team no longer has a need for you. Vitality with Flames would do alright given how quickly he was thrown into the team, with a semifinals exit at IEM Cologne and then fucking winning a tournament immediately in Gamers 8 2023. An event worth $400,000 that I have never even heard of for some reason. Right before IEM Sydney, another roster change was made when Coach Zonic got moved to Falcons. Vitality would then field Exitez, returning after he was released from TSM, which was a blessing not even in disguise. TSM was terrible and everyone knew it. After this though, to put it bluntly, they'd play like absolute shit at IEM Sydney 2023, placing literally dead last after losing to rank 42 BetBoom, because if ZywOo isn't carrying, the game is just impossible. But hey, it's CS2 now, so everyone needs time to adjust. Except ZywOo, I guess. He's just good at everything all the time. After the catastrophe at Sydney, another change was made to send Magisk to Falcons because, to put it simply, one team has a lot of money and another has good players they don't mind getting rid of. Vitality now need a replacement for a 4-time major champion and become the only top team in history to look towards Great Britain more than once and signed Mezzi from Fnatic. Aside from being a CT pistol demon, Mezzi has the worst key bindings I think you'll ever see. He moves forward with right click, backwards with spacebar, jumps with A, walks with W, moves left with S, and then crouches with C. These are apparently some ancient Quake key bindings, which would explain why they may seem so random, but this is definitely not common in Counter-Strike, so I just wanted to mention it. If he can go pro playing like this, then you can go pro with your default settings. Apex must have absolutely been shitting himself having to figure out strategies with all these changes being made, and it goes without saying that they'd need some time to adjust. Never mind, they won Blastfall Finals literally off rip, with a little bit of tomfoolery in the group stage from Apex.
Into.
You need to win some rounds! Just to let you know!
Vitality walked through FaZe in the finals with an absolute stomping on Vertigo and moved on to the Blast World Finals where, against all odds, without dropping a single map, they won their 2nd event in a row with Mezzi. The Wu was of course the MVP for both of these tournaments, it's just what he does. To end the year, ZywOo was named the #1 best player in the world for the 3rd time ever, having won 5 events and the MVP in every single one. It's just what he does. And Spinks was ranked at number 5 despite not winning a single MVP, simply due to his consistency on a team where one guy is averaging a 1.30 rating every single game. It's not an easy thing to do. 2024 starts off great with Vitality winning 13-0 against Flames' old team OG, but for some reason their form did not translate at all in Katowice, where they once again got knocked out of the tournament in 13th to 16th, not winning a single game. And then they'd play well at the major, but unfortunately get eliminated in the semifinals against FaZe. Then they'd play well at EPL Season 19, but unfortunately lose to Mouse in the finals. And then they'd play well at IEM Dallas, but unfortunately lose to G2 in the finals. Then they'd look great at the Blast Spring finals, but unfortunately lose to Spirit in the semifinals. Unfortunately, that is the story of this team in 2024. They'd get close every single time, but then can't seem to close it out when they really need to. They do, however, show up at IEM Cologne, because if there's one thing you need to know about this team, it's that they have a government-mandated 1 tournament victory every single year. So they'd come into Cologne, roll through the groups and semis, and then clamor Na'Vi 3-1 in the final. Winning Cologne even put them in the running for the Grand Slam if they could somehow muster together 3 more victories at IEM or ESL events. This was a great win for the team, showcasing their true abilities if they could ever figure out their own personal issues, but that isn't what happens. Vitality wouldn't get close to a trophy again in 2024 and end up dropping out of the major in the quarterfinals after a really solid 3-0 showing in the Legend stage that proved to be much less telling than it actually was. Something wasn't working with this team, and whatever it was only seemed to rear its ugly head whenever they needed to show up the most. Fans of Vitality were disappointed about Mezzi because of his performance this year, and when a rumor released saying that Spinks was fed up with the team and Vitality were exploring options to sign Hunter, fans were quick to jump on Mezzi for being the main reason why. Causing the 5th best player in the world to leave your team is not something you want on your conscience. Exitez eventually confirmed that Spinks did in fact want out of Vitality after their semifinals exit against Spirit in June, but denied any claims that it had anything to do with Mezzi. All that we know is something happened within the team that made Spinks want to leave in spring of 2024, and come January 2025, Spinks got his wish when he was benched for major winner, 5-time MVP, and 6-time HLTV top 20 player, Rops. Vitality fans couldn't be happier about this pickup, and fans of FaZe couldn't be more heartbroken, considering he was ranked the 3rd best player in the world in 2023 and was still playing incredibly well, being named the 18th best player of 2024. With Flames being the 7th best player in the world and ZywOo being ranked at number 3, hilariously the lowest ranking he's ever received, the Rops and ZywOo duo was going to make waves, and within 2 months it was starting to look like a tsunami. At the HLTV Awards right before Blast Spring, and one day after the official Rops announcement, Apex was talking with the CEO of Vitality in the lounge, and Apex told him with a completely dead serious expression, "We are winning Katowice." To which Neo, Vitality's owner, said, "Okay. Cool." What was about to happen was something nobody could have expected, something no team could have prepared for, something historic and completely unlike anything this game has ever experienced. Vitality would walk into Katowice ranked 4th in the world and would walk every team heading into the finals, dropping only a single map to phase in the groups. Then they'd swiftly breeze past world number 1 Spirit 3-0 without a sweat. ZywOo of course snagged the MVP with a 1.37 rating because it's just what he does. He commended his new teammate after the event, saying, "You can see why Rops fucked us in Shanghai. Finally we got this player on our side." You can see how happy they are playing together. After now winning a Major, a Cologne, and a Katowice, 3 of the most prestigious events in Counter-Strike, ZywOo said he will not stop there. Quote, "I still want to win even more. More Katowices, more Colognes, more Majors. The fire is still there. I just want to keep fucking everyone." Pause, what? Next up was EPL Season 21, and they'd steamroll the groups 3-0, only dropping a single map to MIBR, and they'd run through the playoffs stomping Liquid and Mongols to meet Maus with Spinks in the finals, who didn't even get more than 10 rounds on a single map in the best-of-5 finals. The chemistry of this team just clicked in the 2 months that they had to practice before Katowice. Everyone was playing at their peak performance, and with Apex reading the opponents as easily as he has been, Vitality just looked above and beyond the rest of the world. With EPL under their belt, ZywOo claimed his record-breaking 22nd MVP, surpassing Simple's record of 21, which is really pulling him ahead in the GOAT conversation. At Blast Open Lisbon, they wouldn't drop a single map on their way to the playoffs, where they took down world number 1 Spirit yet again, despite Donk's best efforts, and then they'd begin the finals against Maus with a flawless 13-0 on Inferno. Credit where credit is due, Maus put up a decent fight, winning the next 2 maps and taking the series lead 2-1, but they couldn't stop ZywOo and Apex on Nuke, and Flames absolutely went off on Train to close out the series 3-2 for their 3rd consecutive trophy this year. Guess who the MVP was? I don't even need to tell you. You already know. IEM Melbourne was a month later, and if you expected them to fall off after a month-long break, you'd be wrong. This tournament, they got better.
Oh, they can win this. Kill Robs quick. Flash. They team flash. Robs, they can't win this. They cannot win this.
Not dropping a single map in the group stage again, absolutely obliterating Mongols 13-3 on both maps, and then finally losing a map in the finals against Falcons with former teammate Magix, who actually put up an insanely close fight. Map 5 of the series was anyone's game, going into triple overtime before Vitality finally closed it out for their 4th tournament victory in a row. If there was any tournament where someone other than ZywOo was going to win the MVP, it would have been this one. Robs put up a monstrous 1.35 rating in the event, which is actually his highest rated event he's ever played, and he's won 5 MVPs in the past. It's just too bad that he has the Woo on the team, who barely edged him out with a 1.37 rating and stole the MVP because it's just what he does. But this wasn't just any old victory. As well as winning their 4th tournament in a row, and because they won Cologne last year, this win meant they completed the ESL Grand Slam, which awarded them $1 million for winning 4 ESL or IEM events in a 10-event window. Vitality are now the 5th team to ever achieve the Grand Slam, right behind Astralis, Liquid, Na'Vi, and FaZe. This achievement alone already puts them in conversations as one of the greatest teams of all time, but they don't stop there. Without any time to really celebrate, and within the next week of May, Vitality had to fly from Australia to Denmark to play in the Blast Rivals Spring. The narrative here was that they were going to be extremely jet-lagged, as Melbourne to Copenhagen is a 20-plus hour flight that usually includes a layover in another country. The logic here is extremely sound. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's just that the team responsible for setting this narrative was Wildcard, so even with ZywOo underperforming, they lost about as fast as you'd expect them to. In the semis against Spirit, ZywOo would be completely absent on map 2 Nuke and had a 0.89 rating, and yet Vitality still won 13-9. If this were 2021, they would have lost 16-7, Kyojin with 20 fist bumps, Shox with 7 sad facecam reactions, and Apex with a 2.67 rating for some reason. And so they're met with Falcons once again in the finals, and just like last time, Falcons put up a decent fight before inevitably failing to close it out on map 5. As Vitality's win streak continues to 24, they surpassed Liquid's previous record for the longest streak, claiming their 5th event in a row on top of it. And so the streak continues 2 weeks later at IEM Dallas, and they start the group stage by giving Apex a turn to carry the team for once against Legacy. It was also extremely close against Falcons, with map 3 almost being brought into overtime after a Magisk 1v3 to keep Falcons in the game. But ZywOo and Apex cleaned up the mess being made, and Rops is always going to get this trade in the end to advance to the finals. Mezzy unintentionally talked some shit before their game against Maus, saying, "They will say as much as they want in interviews to say that they're ready or think that they're ready against us, but it's always different when you get in the server against us." And just like Mezzy predicted, the finals weren't particularly close. In fact, they weren't close at all, actually. There was a moment on map 3 where Maus looked like they were coming back, just for Apex to buy a swag 7 and an absolute dogshit half-buy that ended up winning them the round. Maus got swept 3-0, and Vitality maintained their unbelievable win streak for yet another event, despite everyone and their mothers getting tired of seeing them win. As this Redditor suggests, it's like rock, paper, scissors. Maus is paper, Super, Falcons is rock, and Vitality is gun. Take my updo, epic wholesome chungus kind stranger. The streak would continue into the major, and literally the first match that they play, they get demolished 13-4 on Inferno to Legacy, which technically means that their 30-match win streak ended right here, but they're still undefeated in best of 3s, so in my opinion, this shouldn't count. Best of 1s have always been a random, unpredictable format, especially at majors. Vitality would stomp their way through the rest of Stage 3, only losing a total of 20 rounds in the 4 maps that they played. In the quarterfinals against Na'Vi, a 4K hold from Mezzi on the last round of regulation secured their spot in the semis where they'd meet Maus once again. Maus looked really good against Spirit in the quarters, but once again, Mezzi taunted them by saying, "Maus said in multiple interviews they're ready to beat us. Now it's time to show it." It would be really funny if Vitality lost after this and it lit a fire under Maus or something, but just like last time, it wasn't enough. The Vitality Maus head-to-head is now 22-8 since 2023, as Vitality march forward to their 7th straight Grand Finals appearance against Mongols. Speaking of 7, that's the amount of times that Mongols and Vitality played each other in best of 3s, and the same amount of times that Vitality came out on top. Vitality emerged from the stage as villains, accompanied by a wave of boos, and Apex recorded himself sticking his middle finger at them like an absolute menace. Chad, is this Aura? Despite the loss streak, Mongols looked ready as they took the first map Mirage with a commanding 13-5 win. This match was either going to be a bloodbath or the godlike run ends right here. And a bloodbath it was, but not because these games were close, but because Vitality showed everyone the gap between the best in the world and number 5. Team captain Apex had the highest rating by the end of this battle, making him my Windshields and Bugs Finals MVP. Vitality top off their historic season with a major winning victory, making it now 7 tournaments in a row and 34 best of 3s unbeaten, which is the longest streak by a fairly wide margin. Here's a couple of cool takeaways from this win. Mezzi becomes the first British player to ever win a major. ZywOo joins Device and Coldzera as one of the only players to win 2 major MVPs. Robs became the second player to ever win 2 majors with an entirely different roster and coach. The first being Apex, who became the oldest player to ever win a major, which also puts him in a prestigious list of players that have won 3. The last team to win 6 tournaments in a row was Fnatic in 2016, except they couldn't close out the major. Vitality just did what Fnatic couldn't do 9 years ago. Winning Austin was the icing on the "this will never happen again" cake, but the question now becomes, when does this end? Inevitably, this team is going to lose, so now that they've won the major, are they going to take their foot off the gas? Are they just going to keep winning everything? Lucky for you, we actually have an answer to this question. After the major, there was a month-long break before the next event at IEM Cologne, an event that I actually went to and made an entire video on. You should definitely go and watch it once you're done with this video. And they would look good for the entire group stage, racking up 3 more wins to their best of 3 streak before finally falling to Maus in the semifinals after beating them 7 times in a row. This game against Maus would be the end of their best of 3 streak and the end of their tournament streak. Such a shame it had to be at Cologne of all events, but I suppose it made for a more entertaining final than just watching the same team win over and over again. After Cologne, they'd lose in the semifinals against Mongols, who also finally get a win against them after 8 best of 3s. But then they'd lose to Falcons at the Esports World Cup, and this is when they started saying things like, "Damn, we fell off," and talked about not being very confident anymore. They'd lose a very close grand final against G2 in Blast Open, and at EPL Season 22, they'd actually dominate, but only after losing a best of 3 to fucking Gentlemates. I guess that loss must have really upset them. Apex stood up for themselves and spoke about how the fans were expecting so much more from them these last few events after the year they've had, dropping this hard-ass line that they've been eating too well. So they fed their gluttonous fans one more trophy to bring their 2025 total to 8 after a quick 3-0 in the finals against Falcons, but shockingly, ZywOo didn't get the MVP this time. The award went to m0NESY after the Chosen One had a rare off day in the grand final. Heartbreaking. Guy with 7 fucking MVPs does not get his 8th. This is so sad. Can we please get 7 likes? As we make it to Chengdu, Vitality and ZywOo, Pride of China, are on the ropes by day 1. I was supposed to go to this event, and I really want to thank Intel for giving me the opportunity to attend another event across the globe, but unfortunately I got COVID in big 2025 and had to stay home, which was really depressing because I had to sit at home and watch these events at like 1 AM knowing I could have been there in person. Sorry, Intel, I won't be sick next time. But anyway, after Vitality won a trophy for the first time in 3 months, you'd expect them to be on top of their game for Chengdu. However, in those few weeks between events, it appears that teams have gotten some of their problems sorted and know a little bit more about taking down a giant. Virtus Pro gave the guys a run for their money, and they showed a weakness that Maus ended up exploiting after a close quadruple overtime on map 3 to send Vitality down to the lower bracket for what must be the first time in forever. In the lower bracket, they'd face off against home team Lin Vision and absolutely trounce them, which was not very poggers. And if it weren't for the fact that G2 were playing with their coach instead of Hunter due to a medical emergency, who knows if Vitality would have won their game to even qualify for the playoffs. Their quarterfinals matchup was against none other than Mr. Quarterfinals exit himself, Astralis, who who were able to take a map off of Vitality anyway, which is the reddest of red flags. They'd get their revenge against Mouse in the semis, which proved that they do in fact anti-strat and prepare for these matches, thankfully, but what they weren't prepared for was how well Furia have been playing recently. Furia went on a tear on their way to the finals where they would 3-0 Vitality in a battle that was way closer than it seems to be. 2 of the 3 maps went to the full 24 rounds except for Inferno, which went to 23. Literally any gunfight this game could have determined a different champion. If only ZywOo played a little bit better, maybe they would have gotten their chance. That guy always letting us down in the big moments. Now that we've caught up to date completely with Blast Rivals Fall, where they'd lose to Furia yet again and get eliminated by the Falcons in the semifinals, this makes it impossible for them to catch up to Astralis' record of 10 tournaments in a single year, even if they manage to win the Star Ladder Major in December. By the time this video comes out, Stage 3 of the Major will already be underway, and if Vitality are able to go back-to-back is still up in the air. But the potential is definitely still there, and they will still be somewhat favored to win despite their recent tournament performances. I wouldn't count Vitality out just yet, because their story is still being written and can still make a late-stage comeback just like Astralis did after the Team Liquid era. For all that we know, 2026 could be another year of Vitality, and they could completely dominate at the same level they were at before. Or they could fall off the face of the earth and never win a trophy again. That's also a possibility. So where does Vitality as they stand now rank as a team of all time? Firmly in second place behind Astralis. As ridiculous as it sounds, I think Vitality still needs to win a couple more majors before we can consider them the greatest team of all time, the team that solved Counter-Strike TM. Not trying to take anything away from them or undermine their accomplishments or anything, it's just that Astralis were so unbelievable at the time that catching up to them means the bar should be set that high. But Vitality are definitely the second best team the game has ever seen. With unprecedented dominance in what could be regarded as the most difficult era of Counter-Strike of all time, with as much consistency as they've had at a time where the game has never seen so much skilled competition, during a period where teams practice better and have access to literally decades worth of information on how the game should be played. We may never see another team like Vitality again. Their win streak can go untouched for probably another decade, and by the time that day comes where it is broken, Apex will already be retired and have opened a little coffee shop in the center of Paris, and when you go in, you can ask for an item on the menu called The Woo. He'll hand you the sharpest, most bitter shot of espresso you'll ever drink. You'll ask why it's called that, and he'll tell you this: it is pure. It is not afraid of what it is, completely and unapologetically itself. It is consistent. You know exactly what you're getting every single time, and you'll be surprised by its complexity anyway. It is the foundation which you build upon. Mix anything you want with it, there isn't anything that can change its unmistakable character. It is itself every time, whether you hate it or not. There are no rivals to a shot of espresso. It is coffee in its purest form, and nothing comes close. And then you'll say, what the fuck does that mean, Apex Counter-Strike? And he kicks you out of the store for taking up all his time, even though he was the one talking. What the fuck was that about? But anyway, I've run out of things to talk about unless you want to hear me ramble for another 20 minutes, so if that's something that intrigues you, let me know, and I'll get right on that, unless you have something else in mind that you'd like me to cover, or if you have any ideas of what kind of stuff you might want to see me do in the future. Thank you for clicking on my video instead of all the other videos on here. You don't gotta subscribe or like the video if you don't want to, but thank you if you did. I just really appreciate you if you watched this far regardless. And feel free to let me know if I got anything wrong or if I missed anything important, because there's a really good chance that I did or I just forgot to include it. But either way, let me know what you think and if I should make more videos like this in the future, because I really do enjoy making these types of videos and I would love to create more of them, but only if you guys want. I also want to thank you, and specifically you, if you watched this far and not those other guys that stopped watching earlier. Yuck. Imagine not supporting your favorite creator. How stinky smelly of them. But seriously, thank you guys for watching. Shoot your ideas or thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. See ya!